On the 12th of May 2026, a notification went out across all social media platforms that stopped Nigerians. What was this devastating news that we heard? Alexx Ekubo was gone. There was no goodbye from him, no final interview, and in the hours that preceded this news, something very, very remarkable happened. Millions of people who had never even met him physically grieved him like he was their brother, their son, or even their spouse. And I must assure you that this doesn't happen by accident. This is the mark of a life that was truly and deeply lived. So who was Alexx Ekubo really? Beyond the movies, beyond the limelight, beyond the headlines, beyond all this noise, this is his story. Alexx Ekubo was born in 1986, 10th of April in Port Harcourt of Rivers State. He was the second of 4 children raised by Jane Ekubo, a fashion designer and a businesswoman, and Mazi Alexx Ekubo, a petroleum marketer. He was an Igbo boy with a Katsina education. He was fluent in English, Igbo language, and even Hausa, which, if you think of it, tells you something about him already. Alexx was never meant to fit in just one box. He studied law at the University of Calabar and later studied mass communication at Calabar Polytechnic. That was to show you that he was building himself strategically, carefully, and deliberately, even before the world knew who he was. Now you might wonder, how exactly did he come into the limelight? How did Nigerians get to know about this tall, light-skinned, handsome man? Someone who had the most beautiful of smiles. So here you have it. In 2010, he walked into the Mr. Nigeria stage, tall, composed, and magnetic. And even though he didn't win, he came first runner-up, which I think is actually still a very brilliant position. However, this opportunity gave him the starting point into acting and into the limelight in general. The pageant was just merely a starting point for him. This modeling career would span over 15 years for him and even span into Nollywood as an actor. So looking back at it now, it is almost as if it was poetic that a man would spend his life giving people something to watch. First from the Mr. Nigerian's pageant, and eventually us watching him on our screens, on our TV, as someone who entertains, as someone who made people happy. However, what most people don't know is that Alexx Ekubo's story, or Alexx Ekubo's acting story, didn't just begin with a blockbuster. It began in 2003 with a minor role in Sinners in the House, a movie where he was just a teenager. He was unknown, he was unpolished, but he was there. So over the next 2 decades, he would go on to build one of the most fascinating, impressive filmographies in the Nollywood industry. He starred in movies like Lagos Cougars, Weekend Getaway, The Bling Lagosians, Hire a Woman, Son of Mercy, Tiger's Tale, A Sunday Affairs, Omogeto, just to name it. Hundreds of them, and he acted and aced them intelligently, which made him to become one of the most favorite actors in Nigeria. Someone all the ladies were dying to be noticed by, and someone all the men wanted to be. You can imagine. The last one, which was Omogeto, was directed by Funke Akindele, and it became one of the most cultural moments in Nigeria. The movie grossed up to 700 million naira in box office, making it one of the most highest earning Nollywood films that was ever made in Nigeria. And guess what? Alexx Ekubo was right in the middle of it, holding his own against Nollywood industry and becoming one of the most biggest Nollywood names that we have. In 2014, Yemi Alade released a song called Johnny, which you all know, a very, very popular song. And guess what? She chose Alexx to be the face of the song. And that video went up to surpass 90 million views on YouTube, like becoming at that time the most watched music video ever to come out of an African continent. You can imagine 90 million people watching the movie far back as 2014. Think about what that means. Think about how many corners of the world saw a Nigerian man who was confident, who was effortlessly charming, and who was handsome, and thought, I want to know more about where he comes from. So, Alexx Ekubo didn't just represent Nollywood. In that moment, he represented all of us. Away from the camera, Alexx was also doing something remarkable, something not many entertainers of his generation was doing. He was building behind the camera. He had a fashion collaboration with Yomi Casual, and it wasn't just a typical ambassadorship type of deal. Reports suggested that he had an actual share of proceeds from the branded collection, a structure that was rare and forward-thinking in Nigeria's celebrity space. In 2022, he unveiled a custom-built smart home in Lekki, Lagos. There was automated systems, there was integrated security, a gaming room, an entertainment lounge, name it. A man who earned well, but guess what? He also built wisely. At the peak of his career, he was commanding between 3 million and 8 million naira per production, allegedly. He was also quietly co-investing in independent films behind the scenes, understanding early that the real money in entertainment wasn't just in front of the camera, it was behind the camera. So yes, he was an actor, but he was also a strategist. That was one of the parts of Alexx Ekubo's story that wasn't so recognized by others. Now, in 2020, the United Nations recognized him as one of the most influential people of African descent under 40 years. Not for his box movies number, but for his contributions to the entertainment and social development across the continent of Africa. That same year, he received a certificate of excellence for his work in sustainable developmental goals. In 2021, he was named Global Social Giving Actor of the Year at the Nigeria National Awards. And in 2023, just 2 years before he passed, unfortunately, the Rotary International District of 1942 named him the Youth Ambassador of the Year. He was out there doing the work, not for the press, not for the limelight, not for the photo ops, just doing it for humanity and for him. Now that is character if you ask me. And let me tell you something. You can never ever fake character. Period. He was also awarded BIFATA Nollywood Rising Star in 2014, Best Actor of the Year at the Best Nollywoods in both 2022 and 2016. He was also awarded the Best Actor at the Toronto International Nollywood Film Festival in 2022, a special recognition award from the First Lady of Nigeria in 2018, an honorary degree in arts and culture from ISCG University in Benin Republic in 2021. The awards came because he was consistent across decades. And you might wonder, why was he getting all this award? It was just simply because he showed up every single time. Now, just like every other great man would have some not so great years in their life, this, amongst others that we might not know, was one of the most trying times for Alexx Ekubo. But surprisingly, it started as a good news, but then, it spiraled down. In May of 2021, Alexx Ekubo announced something that made everybody congratulate him and made everybody in the country smile. He was engaged to a Nigerian-American actress, Fancy Achalonu, who was a model, an entrepreneur, and within the days of the engagement announcement, there was already plans of, doing his wedding in Imo State and doing the other wedding in Lagos, traditionally in Imo State, and then the white wedding in Lagos in November of 2021. Nigeria was invested, of course. He was a celebrity. He was the people's choice. He was the people's man. But then in August of that same year, Fancy posted on Instagram. Guess what? She called off the engagement. She said she needed time to make the best decision for herself and that everyone deserved to live in their truth. That was her exact word. I mean, those last four words set the internet on fire. And Alexx said nothing publicly. While the rumors were swirling in blogs, everybody was running wild. He stayed silent, he stayed composed, he stayed dignified. Even as his name was being dragged through the mud on every comment in Nigeria's blog space, he stayed quiet. November of 2022, Fancy, Alexx's ex-fiancée, issued a public apology. She said losing him felt like grief, and Alexx responded briefly, graciously, like a man that he was in the comments, and said he appreciated it. But the back and forth between them, between lovers or ex-lovers, as the case was, didn't end there. There were more interviews, more revelations, and the full complicated picture of what happened between them was slowly revealing. Unfortunately, it was painfully stitched together in public without his participation. And you know what happens when a story comes out in public. People are going to make up story. People are going to put their own logic into the whole thing. So that was what happened, unfortunately. And at some point, even media personality Daddy Freeze revealed that he had to have a conversation with Alexx, and he still maintained that there is no need coming to the public to clarify anything. He stayed gracious, he stayed manly, even at the top of the whole controversy and saga. He mentioned that he told Daddy Freeze that he was a calculating person, that he didn't want to just go back and forth, and that he would always consider Fancy Achelono as a friend. And that was very, very lovely. And that also proved the kind of person he was. I could only say that whatever happened between them, only them know. Now, one lesson we would bring out from this is that he was a man that, even though he could have fought, he chose peace. He chose quietness, and that peace cost him something. But instead, he chose it. Some people never recover from this kind of public trauma. And looking back at it now, many people would wonder if Alexx ever truly did what he was accused of. But that is not the base of the story. Now, after 2024, Alexx Ekubo went quiet. There was no more movies, there was no more events, there was no more social media. In fact, his last Instagram post was the one that he posted on the 30th of December 2024. It was just a light-hearted video in his car, laughing about an encounter with a masquerade in his village. Unfortunately, nobody knew that would be his last post. Fans began to notice. Then people began to worry. People began to pray. What none of them knew was that very few people who knew Alexx knew he was struggling and fighting from kidney cancer. Privately, quietly as always, the same way he had always handled situations and everything going difficult for him in this life. On Monday, 11th of May 2026, he was rushed to a hospital in Lagos, and he spent the last hours of his life in life support. And unfortunately, at 40 years of age, he passed on. The news broke on the May 12th. Something extraordinary happened. People were crying, people were spiraling, people were pouring out eulogies, people were pouring out stories of how he was a man indeed. Funke Akindele, who had worked with him, laughed with him and fought for him on screen, posted that she tried to reach him, during his last days, but she was too late. Even the ex-governor of Anambra State and one-time Nigeria's president aspirant, Peter Obi, posted that it was a very painful loss. And even Omoyele Sowore described him as a rare talent. Colleagues who had known him for so many years broke down, sobbing, crying, publicly. And then there were the fans, ordinary Nigerians, people who had never even shaken his hands, never been in the same room with him, grieving like they knew him, grieving him like he was family. Because in a real way, they had known him as someone who entertained him, someone who made them feel happy. So in a way, he was family to them. So that is what Alexx Ekubo had built over the years, over 40 years of his life. Not just, filmography, not just a brand, but he built connections. He made people feel something. Every time they saw his face on the screen, every time they heard his name, They felt joy. They felt something palpable. He appeared in over hundreds of films and he stood in front of 90 million pairs of eyes in a music video. He gave back to his community in a way he could. He held his head up high when it would have been easy to just float down. And he did all of this with his very enchanting, charming smile.